Get started. You ready, Michael?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming to tonight's Board of Trustees meeting. And if we could start, and today is September 28th. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're excited to have people here today. Normally it's just us, so this is exciting. So first on the agenda, we actually have public comment. If anybody would like to come up, you can come up to the podium, just state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Mark Intockley. I'm a Bloomfield Township Precinct 3 delegate. I am requesting a 10% reduction in the variable rates for water and sewer because of the information in this packet. The unrestricted net position has increased from about 9 million to over 20 million in the last 2 years, and that's the basis of my request. It's apparent that we are more than well funded. And even based on the documents presented by the township, claiming we have a 25% pro rata portion for operating expenses in our in the revenue collected, which would be 7 million, and in the report from UHY, it's listed at a little over 4 million as well. So again, I'm requesting a 10% rate reduction in water and sewer. The other thing I noticed was the GASB disclosures do not include include a contribution from water and sewer. Those funds were never approved by the board since 2008. The funds that are approved were the 2 million and then the 1.25 million plus the 500,000 additional during COVID lockdowns. Other items that are transferred from water and sewer, like the pension bond debt, are approved by the board, or the central services fees, while the additional contributions from water and sewer are not. And I'd like to understand why those items are not included in the audit. Lastly, I would like to comment on the pension bond, which appears to be down about 20 million from January 1. The actuaries for the pension bond are established on January 1 of the year, not at the financial year. The last time we had a $12 million drop in the pension assets, there was a $600,000 increase to the actuarially determined contributions. So I don't know if the additional contributions for this year have been made yet. Today we have 2 items, capital items on for public safety. It might be prudent to use the public safety or the COVID relief funds against those expenditures and move cash into the future expenditures capital investment fund that the township set up. That would free up cash in the upcoming years, especially if property values drop due to increased interest rates. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening. Normally I'm here on Tuesdays. My name is Kathy Weisenborn. I serve as the manager of Bloomfield Village Association, and I'm also a village resident. As you are aware, the residents of Bloomfield Village are in the process of trying to form 5 special assessment districts to allow us to pay to improve our roads. Therefore, I have special appreciation for the process that you as a board have gone through, as well as the township staff, in articulating and clarifying a special assessment district process and policy with a written document. With the importance of clarity in mind, I would draw your attention to the section that's entitled Assessment Amount Increases, which is on page 4 of the proposed policy you'll address this evening. I think it's like on page 142 of the packet you received. This section addresses the scenario where the final assessment cost after the bids come in exceeds the estimated cost by more than 15%. The proposed policy requires that the proposed SAD be placed on a 30-day hold and that an additional or third public hearing take place. Once that prescribed hold period has concluded and the public hearing is conducted, the proposed policy lays out 3 options for you as a board. Option 1 would be the township board would ask the residents to go back and recirculate the petition with the updated bid costs included in it. Option 2 would be the township board could approve the SAD on its own motion. Or option 3, the project does not proceed. On behalf of the Village Association and the dedicated volunteers who are going to attempt to do SADs, 5 of them in the village, I would respectfully suggest that you include in the written policy a 4th option, which may be implied, but it's not included in the written words of the proposed policy. And that 4th option would be to allow approval, this board to approve the SAD on the basis of the petition already presented, as well as the comments that you receive at the 3 public hearings. As an example, if the board were presented with a petition that had substantial public support, resident support, say 65, 70%, and had negligible opposition at 3 public hearings, wouldn't it make sense to clearly give you the option to approve the SAD on that basis? We think that in articulating that 4th option would give the board the flexibility to approve the SAD in that circumstance where there is substantial residential support without requiring the delay and the cost of recirculation. A second area in which—
Eisenborn, we're just near the end of your 3 minutes.
Okay. The second area that I thought clarification would be helpful is has been your past practice to allocate the SAD cost, aggregate project cost, on a pro rata basis. I didn't find that written in the policy, and we just thought that might be helpful to make that clear. Thank you for listening to my comments and suggestions.
Thanks.
Anybody else here to speak? Close public comment. Next we'll go to approving the board minutes of September 12th. We've all had a chance to look them over. Unless there's any changes, I'd look for a motion.
Support.
Motion by trustee Barnett.
Support.
Support by trustee Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. Okay, the first thing, or the next one that we're going to deal with is considering the acceptance of the UHY independent audit of March 31, 2022 financial statements. If you guys want to just introduce yourself. How is Lorraine? What are you doing? How did that happen?
That's what he says.
First of all, I want to thank you guys for dealing with, Jason is a talker, as you can see. Anybody who's ever seen our finance director at these meetings, he is a man of many words back there. So I know it was probably very hard, but no, thank you.
I'm Mike Santicha, partner at UHY, along with Marlene Beach and Lorraine Moravsky back there will present our audit of March 31. And you've got copies of the financial statements. We're just going to do a brief PowerPoint presentation to hit some of the highlights of the audit. So the following presentation represents a summary of the overall government activities and business type activities of Bloomfield Township. The specific fund presentation slides detail certain but not all of the funds, as noted in the slide titled Independent Auditor's Report. The audit of the township included the governmental activities, the business type activities, the aggregate discretely presented component unit, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Bloomfield Township. The township funds that were audited as part of this year's audit are on this slide here, and we highlighted the major funds: general, road, public safety, special assessment fund, the pension obligation bond debt fund, and the water and sewer fund. But the remainder were all the other funds that were included in our audit. Auditing standards require that we communicate certain items to the Board of Trustees. Again, we audited the financial statements, as we said, and we issued an unmodified opinion again, which is the highest level of opinion that we can issue. The accounting standards also say there's certain responsibilities. We communicated some of those in our engagement letter dated in May, but there's also others that we need to communicate to you. The accounting policies, which you'll find in note 1 of our package, are management's responsibility to select and use. As part of our audit, we make sure you are following those policies, which you were. Same with the estimates. It's up to management to come up with those estimates. And again, as part of our audit, we make sure those estimates are reasonable. And they were. Pleased to report there were no audit adjustments. So that's a very good sign that the numbers that you're looking at are good to make decisions as you go along monthly. So that's a very good job. So we thank Jason for that. There was no disagreements with Township's management over the course of our audit. To our knowledge, there was no other consultations with any other auditors during the audit, and there were no issues discussed with management prior to our appointment. There were no difficulties encountered. One of the things we do look for is when we ask for certain items, we got those quickly from Jason and his team, which shows us that, you know, he had all the documentation that we required, so that's a good sign. They were very prepared, and Jason gave us all the time we needed during the audit. Some other items, we did conduct fraud interviews with management team and a board trustee. No instances of fraud were reported to us. Items, again, like I mentioned, items tested during the audit had sufficient and appropriate audit support, which included documentation and more importantly, approval of those items. We also tested expense reimbursements. All the items tested as part of that audit had sufficient and appropriate support with it and approval. And we also looked at the credit card statements, and again, we tested part of that, and each one had sufficient and appropriate audit support, again, with proper documentation and approval. Some of the highlights, the OPEB and pension liabilities are primary factors causing the negative net position in the government activities. We'll have some more information on those in the following slides. There was no expenditures in excess of the required budget amounts. The township was awarded $4.4 million in ARPA funds, of which $2.2 million was received during our fiscal year that we audited. And as of March 31, none of these funds had been allocated or spent, and the remainder of the ARPA funds were received in May of 2022. Some significant capital purchases included police vehicles, plow trucks, safety equipment, safety path construction, and improvement to water and sewer infrastructure. So on the OPEB, what we wanted to show is what happened since we had information from 2018 on. We were funded at about 7% back in 2018. Currently, we're at about 22%. So that is very high in the other municipalities that we do. So that's a very good sign. Pension is the same. As you can see, we are now funded about 90%, slight drop. That house comes in with the market rates and things like that as assets go up and down. Now Marlene will do the heavy lifting with the,
I can do it. I can handle both. Okay, this first slide is the township as a whole. What this represents is all the activities of the township. Doesn't include things, as Mike mentioned, pension, the long-term liabilities. And as you notice down the bottom, there is the net pension deficit that Mike showed. Your OPEB liability is about 81 million and approximately 24 million for the pension liabilities, which puts that into the negative position. Again, these are not new liabilities, just been on the balance sheet now for a few years. Some things that are also when there's your long-term debt gets included in the statements, which aren't normally, they're not a part of your fund statement. So that's what kind of drives the negative unrestricted fund balance. That's not unusual. Almost every one of the government entities that we do audit does have a negative unrestricted when it goes into the township as a whole, and almost everybody's is caused by pension and OPEB. Okay, the first one was basically the balance sheet, which is the snapshot as of March 31st, 2022. This one shows revenues, and remember your revenues are, a function throughout the year. Total revenue about 61 in 2022 for your governmental activities, and just about 61. So we were at 62, now down 61 in 2020. So a slight increase in revenues. And we do have slides that detail some specific funds, so you'll be able to see some of the differences on those slides. Again, this is the township as a whole. So you have revenues, you have to have expenditures. Total program expenses in 2021 were about 32.4. Program expenses in 2022 were about 34.5. So we did have a little bit increase there. Your change in net position, which is a direct relationship of your revenues over your expenditures, was close to 27 million. So that's the increase in the net position. Once again, goes back to the township as a whole. Now we're getting into the specific funds themselves. Once again, funds do not include things like OPEB and pension and your long-term debt. So if you look at your assets in 2021 versus 2022, they're about 15.5 in 2021. You're now at 18.4. General fund liabilities, you're going to see something unique from this year that was not on there last year. You see unearned revenue in the ARPA funds. Okay, those are the funds that Mike mentioned that have come in yet, but were not spent or allocated. So they're put into unearned revenue, which is a liability until they're spent. As you start using them, then they'll be reflected in the revenue and expenditures as they're spent. So that's what that liability is. It's not money, it's money that you already have that you'll be using on projects in the future. That's why at this time it's a liability, and that's the difference in your liabilities from 2021 to 2022. Fund balance went from 15.2 to about 15.7 in your general fund. What we're doing with this slide is just kind of comparing 2022 to 2021. You can see the blue is 2022, the yellow is 2021. Did have a slight increase in tax revenue. State shared revenue was up this year. Grants were down. There were grants last year, which included the CARES Act. Again, your ARPA is not shown there because on the previous slide, remember that's deferred revenue, so it is not counted as revenue in that year. So revenue in 2021 was about 18.2. This year, it's about 19.1. Same type of slide. This time we're just showing expenditures. Expenditures in 2021 were about 9.4 million. Now we're looking at about approximately 9.7 million. A slight increase in your general government expenditures. Again, 2022, we are seeing kind of a return to somewhat normal operations. Remember 2021, a lot of things were still shut down. As Mike mentioned, we also we do audit all the funds, but water and sewer is one of the major funds. It's listed on the financial statements. Total assets of your water fund this year are about 97 million compared to 94 last year. Big difference in the balance right here is your marketable securities are up. So assets are what you own, liabilities are what you owe. You had liabilities last year of about 3.7 million. This year they're just slightly up to 4.1. Most of that is a function of when things are paid. Your accounts payable and accrued expenses went up. If we'd have done this 4 days later, we may have seen a change. So liabilities are basically a function of the timing when things are paid. Total liabilities in 2021 were about 22 million. This year they're about 21.4. Bottom line you want to look at is your net position. Net position is basically what's left after your assets minus your liabilities. In 2021, you were at 67.6. This year, you're at 73, almost 74 million. And here's a depiction of the revenues. Once again, blue is 2022, our yellow is 2021. Water sales were actually down this year. We are seeing that trend also as people kind of return to work. Previously in 20 and 2021, we had a lot of people at home, so we were seeing water usage change from entities to entities depending on where people worked. So we have seen, that's a typical thing we are seeing across the board in other communities. And sewer usage is not a direct correlation, but pretty darn close to a direct correlation with your water usage. So your revenues in 2021 were about 30 million. We're down to about 30.5 in 2022. Expenditures were almost consistent. We've got 23.1 in 2021 and 23.5. As you would expect, if you had less water sales, you would have less water purchased, which we did see. Big function in this one is you do see depreciation. Depreciation is part of the water and sewer expenditure report. So you've got, each year, your depreciation is about $2.3 million. Another one of the major funds was the road funds. Total assets in the road funds were 2.8 last year, and you're looking at about 2.9 this year. And we've got our liabilities and fund balance. If you go down to the bottom, the total fund balance is 2.701 in 2021. This year you're looking at 2.725. So you did have a slight increase in the road fund. And once again, we do depict the revenues and expenditures. Revenues in 2021 were 3.710. This year they're 3.750. So fairly consistent. If you look at the two, all the bar charts, they're almost identical. Expenditures in the road fund relate exactly to that, what you spent for road repairs. So we've got 3.5 last year. Once again, people are out doing things, so now we're looking at 4.3, so an increase in road expenditures. Another one of your major funds is public safety fund. Look at total assets are almost identical. 15.011 last year, 15.116, so very little change in the total assets of your public safety fund. Once again, we're showing the liabilities. Once again, you're seeing a liability for unearned revenue. It means grant money has come in that has not been allocated or spent yet. So it's a liability until you make that expenditure. So once the fire truck payments are made, you will see that liability recorded as revenue and expense for the next year. Fund balance in your public safety fund, 2021 was just under 14 million. 2022, you're just over. So we did see a slight increase. As again, we saw on the other slides, revenue is very similar here from year to year. Big difference from 2021 to 2022 is grants. There was a lot of, the CARES money came through in 2021. So again, as that's spent, it would be recorded as revenue. So that's the main difference between 2021 and 2022. Again, oops, a little too high. Expenditures are also fairly consistent from year to year. Last year, capital outlay of about 1.3, which was related to the fire trucks, which if you go back was also grant related. This year had a very 176, so quite a decrease in your capital outlay for your public expenditure funds.
And your financial statements have been timely submitted to the state, so you've got that also. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Michael?
I do. A few things. First of all, thank you all for your hard work and keeping us honest, since that's what the audit does. I had a question here on the slide number 7. You highlighted 6 funds and then listed, call it 15 others. I think I know the answer to this, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear that you audited all of these funds.
Correct.
We just highlighted.
You
ones-
highlighted just the major
funds,
funds, and
but all
that's the
these
one.
funds were included.
Right, because you only showed those during the
Yeah, so
presentation,
those
right?
are the
Okay,
major.
so I just
All
wanted to
these
be
other
clear
funds-
that, no, you audited every fund.
Every fund
Correct.
that's on, yes.
Okay. And you said no expenditures in excess of required budget amounts. Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, you're not required to budget every fund, but every fund that we looked at, which is your major funds, we did not find expenditures in excess of the budgeted amount.
Okay, so we only spent what was budgeted,
Correct.
or less.
Or
less.
less, correct, yes.
Okay. On the township as a whole balance sheet, we obviously have a large deficit, and I just wanted to be clear about this and make it clear for everybody that we only include the net liability for pension and OPEB. We don't show the total assets and the total liabilities, because when you look at this and you see, oh, they got a big deficit with a big liability, well, where are the assets? I don't want somebody running in here saying, where are the assets, right? All we're showing is the net.
The net liability,
The
correct.
net liability. So our liability in pension exceeds our assets. Our OPEB liability exceeds our assets. We only show that net amount
Correct.
in this statement. Okay,
Right, so the actuary determines what that liability is.
Right.
And then we net the assets that you have.
right. So we do have the assets.
Correct.
They're just, we're
Correct.
only
So
showing the
that's why we
net.
had that one slide where we showed the assets and
Yep.
funds, so that you do have that.
Okay. Just want to clarify that for those watching at home. And,
Big following.
you know, it's going to spike to like 10 people tonight.
Exciting topic.
Huge.
My last question is the same one I ask Marlene every year. This says that you are a firefighter and EMT. No, this is not the one I ask you every year.
Yes, I am, that's correct.
That's pretty impressive. What's more impressive is that you're a certified fraud examiner.
That is correct also.
And so in looking and conducting the audit, there wasn't anything that you sniffed out that you felt that we should be concerned about.
No, nothing came to our attention that we saw that would even require further looking into. There was no instances whatsoever.
Right.
No.
And you're a certified fire instructor. Do you still teach?
Occasionally.
Okay.
She does keep that up.
Yes.
She might need, if you need somebody.
Yes.
She is the only
Yeah.
CPA that is a firefighter EMT, so.
That is
Okay.
And she can play taps.
Yes.
That's
Kind of well-rounded in that whole.
Well-rounded. Okay. In a good way. Okay. Those are my questions.
Anyone else have questions? Anyone? I would just want to point out that you helped with, I know we all have dealt with the water sewer questions. It went to the Supreme Court. You still get one or two that are convinced there's something there, but I just want to point out, thank you for going in even deeper as we asked them to go even deeper to see if there really was. So thank you. And saying like the highest level was what we wanted to know, that we were at a high level. You mentioned no audit adjustments. Is that common to get no audit adjustments? Or is that kind of like,
No,
we're
that
kind
is
of a
not-
dream
That's
team up
more on
here?
the rare side.
Yes.
Okay.
Audit adjustments.
Okay.
Some places we see we have double digits, though.
There's a bunch of department heads here, so you guys guessed very well last year. Let's do it again, because we're in budget season is starting again.
Well, Jason and
Okay.
his team do very well, so
Yeah.
we do appreciate that.
And then with the ARPA, I know we weren't spending it right away because it was so limited, and now we can spend it on actual things that we need instead of the two things the government thought we needed, which was frustrating. So I'm glad we waited it out. Next year, just to wrap my head around it, if we're just starting the study sessions and the budget season, so likely we will be picking some ARPA fund things this year. Is it 750,000 or higher where the special audit, where if we use $750,000 of federal money, you will have to do a separate audit on that grant money?
Yeah, it's called a single audit. So if
Single
you
audit.
expend $750,000, those come into play.
But that's not specific, it's not a program. If you spend more than 750,000 in federal funds, it
Yeah.
triggers a single audit. There are special rules
Okay.
if, with the ARPA funds, that if it ticks you over, then you can just get the compliance audit. And I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, and we probably will be spending more on that. I just want to get that out there for the fans watching.
Yes.
If there's another audit, we didn't do anything
More than likely
wrong.
will
Oh, and
It is
again,
a rule.
That's from the federal
Okay.
government saying, are these funds? So we look at what programs you're spending it on.
Right.
Does it comply? So we test those expenditures
Okay,
to
perfect.
make sure they're proper.
I'm guessing there'll be some. We had about $42 million worth of requests for our 4 million, so I'm sure it'll be spent. Let's see, those are my last. I think those are my only questions. Nobody else had any others? Great, then do we have to vote to accept it?
Motion to accept.
Does it have to be roll call?
No.
Oh, did you have something
No,
else?
I was going to make a motion
Sure.
to accept the audit and thank you for your work.
Motion by
Support.
Treasurer Keefe, support by Trustee Shostak. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
And also Lorraine, who's hiding in the back. Thank you. All right, perfect. Next, we have our consider approval of the 2022 tax rate request form for L4029. We have Director of Assessing, Darren Kraft. I was being lazy. Mark makes you read the whole thing. Do you make me read the whole thing?
No.
Okay.
Can't wait for you.
If I don't, you will.
This is a form that we do every year. We're required to turn it into the county clerk, county equalization department, and then we're also required to have it on file here with the township clerk. Supervisor Walsh and trustee or clerk Brooke are very familiar with this form. They see this every year, and this is something that
Sometimes 3 times in a year.
like I said, we do this. We do this over and over and over again every year. But this year, this was something that Brian had brought to our attention, or my attention, that we had never brought this to the township board for approval in the past. And so he asked me why. And I said, well, I don't know. We've never done it that way. So we did some research and we determined that this is something that should come to the board every year. And so we are going to be bringing this to the board annually for you guys to approve the millage rates that we're going to levy in the winter tax season. So just to give you a real brief kind of an overview of this form, because I know it gets a little overwhelming at times, but on the far left column, it allows us to know whether or not these millages were voted or allocated millages, or exactly how these millages came to be. The second line item is what the millage is and what it's for. So you can see the first 2 are general township millages. The next several are public safety and so on. Line number 3 shows you when it was voted in. Line number 4 was the original millage that was voted in at the time. Line number 5 is the millage that we levied last year. 6 is the Headley rollback, so that's the millage reduction fraction rollback. That's calculated by Oakland County annually, and we use that to apply it to the previous year millage rate so that we know what our rollback millage for 2022 is. Once we know what that millage is, it gives us in line item number 5, or excuse me, line item number 9, it gives us the maximal allowable levy for each individual millage annually. And then for a line item number 11, it's typically the same as the maximally allowable millage. And then the line item 12 is the year that the millage is set to expire. So this is a document that needs to be approved by the supervisor and the clerk of the board. And so this year, what I'm asking for is a approval of the requested millages to be levied in December, which if you look at the form is line number 11. And so and I guess if there's any questions with regard to calculations, why we do this, I go ahead and I guess feel free to ask.
Anyone have any questions?
Okay.
So I just want to make one comment. I think the reason why this is really being presented and why the board is looking at this, should be looking at it annually, is in the millage language, it allows us to request up to X amount of mills. This is actually where we're saying, this is what we're doing. So rather than presuming that we are going to be requesting the full millage, this is actually the step that the board is taking to say, not only can we do up to, this is what we're saying we are going to do that amount. So this is just that process. And then the supervisor and the clerk sign this. So this is just the board authorizing them to do that.
Another thing that we can hopefully do is add this onto our finance page. Now that you've brought this to light that we should put this out there, it makes another document we can make easily available so that when you get questions about what's the millage rate, what's this, we could add this on there. Again, trying to just make things less reasons for people that need to FOIA.
Yeah, so Darren, how is this different than the truth in taxation hearing?
Oh, well, typically the truth in taxation hearing is when we look at the millage reduction fractions and so forth for when we do it with the budget. This is really applying that reduction fraction to the actual millages. So what we do is we take that reduction fraction, we multiply it by last, in this case 2021's actual millages that we levied, and then that'll give us our 2022 millage rate.
Right.
So it allows us to, I mean, the Headley rollbacks, the if you see in line item number 6, it just kind of shows that, look, hey, we are using the rollbacks, the millages are getting rolled back annually. Like Brian said, based on that, the prior year millages rolled back. This is what we're maximally allowed to levy. And, like Brian was saying that, hey, based on that, we're going to levy the maximally allowable millage that we can.
But has anything changed on this from what we voted on in March?
Nope.
So I think maybe it wasn't
Well,
because we voted on it in March,
you didn't actually vote on,
but we voted on the reductions.
right. Yeah.
Not the actual.
This is now saying we can levy up to X amount, we're going to levy it.
Right, so we have discretion to
Exactly.
levy up to that amount,
No,
but not
I
required
understand.
to.
I guess I just assumed that was part of,
No.
I assumed it was part of the truth that they at the same hearing that we approved the budget, we approved the tax rates. That's okay.
No.
Then-
No, because we
Let's
don't
do it.
levy, if, we don't levy our millages until December. So in order to, we don't know the millage reduction fraction. I guess we kind of do, but no, it's different than the truth in taxation hearings. This is something totally different. This is something that we need to, and we're going to annually from here on out, get the board's approval on the winter millage rates for the tax bills.
So if this doesn't pass, we will have no taxes.
Wishful
true.
thinking.
Well, you probably have no assessor either, but
Chiefs, see you later.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
No, other than just to echo what's been said, that this is a great idea to bring it to the board and have a discussion on this very topic. It's been administratively approved for I don't know how long, for a long time.
long time.
So this is the place it should come, and I'm glad we're talking about it here.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Barnett.
Support?
Support by trustee Faki. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. Nice job, Darren. Next is to consider the approval of the intergovernmental agreement for property assessment services between Bloomfield Township and City of Sylvan Lake.
Thomas, can you pull this up and go to number 5, page 5? Excuse me, not page 5.
Well, for the formal Thomas, because we're in board
Yes,
session.
exactly. Mr. Thomas, to you.
Thomas.
So this is our our contract that we've had with the city of Sylvan Lake for, I think this is my fourth time coming in front of the board with renewal for the assessment services for between us and Sylvan Lake to do their assessment for them, their assessing services for them. I've always given kind of a brief overview of how things are going and so forth. So I guess I won't change that up because we got a perfect score on the AMAR for them as well. So, you know, we dedicate one employee, one full-time employee to Sylvan Lake. This year it's going to be a split between my senior appraiser, Jim Allen, and one of our newer gals, Jennifer Worthman. Jennifer will be taking over Sylvan Lake when Jim retires. Jen has proven to be a valuable asset to our department, and I know she's going to do great things over there when she takes over. So it's basically our standard contract that we've used with them for years now. We did update the item number 5, which is our financing and payments. This year, we increased their annual payment amount to $27,500 this year. And then the other item we put in the contract was that we'll get a annual consumer price index increase every year. It's going to be the annual, whatever this consumer price index is, determined by the state tax commission annually. So we're not locked into one payment for the duration of the contract now. So we'll be able to get incremental increases every year from them. So, and they have approved this contract. I think, I'm not sure when they signed that, but they approved it on September 14th. So the city of Sylvan Lake is in agreement. They'd like us to do their assessment services again for them for the next 3.5 years, and we're happy to do it.
Any questions?
I just have one question. Can
Sure.
you clarify, you said that it's the 27,500, but you mentioned that you have equivalent of one full-time staff working on that.
They're not I shouldn't have said they're not dedicated.
Okay.
They are the assessor of record for the city of Sylvan Lake, so they handle all matters that come up. So, the example today, Jim got an email from Denise, she had a question for him, emailed him. He had to look into it, answer, and respond. So we don't have, not one of our full-time employees is strictly Sylvan Lake every day.
Okay.
They just handle the day-to-day stuff that comes up, questions, concerns, taxpayer
Just
questions.
kind of, that's kind of their separate
Correct. Yeah,
account that
they're-
they handle.
I should
'Cause
have rephrased that. They're full-time Bloomfield Township assessors.
it sounded like equivalent of one full-time person was doing all, and I was gonna say, 27,500 doesn't sound right. Okay, makes sense now.
They handle any and all matters that come up with Sylvan Lake throughout the day or throughout
And
the
other
year.
things.
Do the required forms, the field work, that kind of stuff. But they're not dedicated to the city of Sylvan Lake
Okay, thank
all
you.
day.
Kind of like any of the other shared ones, like our animal welfare, we help, or we have Birmingham uses, we have Franklin uses our EMS, or 911. We have other communities that reach out, so they more than cover the cost it would.
It really works out really well. I mean, we don't do anything different for them that we do here. Everything we do here, we just do it a second time for them. So
Right, I was
it's-
just clarifying when
yeah.
you said, two half-time persons equivalent of one full-time person, and I'm like thinking, it didn't, I wanted to make sure that person was not exclusive, that's all.
No, not exclusive.
Great,
no.
thank you.
Yeah, we love Sylvan Lake, but we
But-
don't need to subsidize their assessing. So
No, they're any intergovernmental that we do, it's for above the cost of what it would cost us.
And that's what I anticipated, but the 27,000 didn't sound like it was possible.
It's a really small.
No, I mean, if it was
Okay.
full-time person, you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
get a full-time person or two half-time.
I guess I would say we certainly more than cover our
Perfect,
time
thank you.
spent.
Are there any other questions? Then I would look for a motion.
So moved?
Moved by Trustee Murray,
Support.
support by Trustee Shostak. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, speaking of animal welfare, we have Chief Gallagher coming up for considering approval of the Oakland County Animal Welfare.
Good evening. Thanks for letting us come in again on our every couple of year animal shelter thing, but I guess I should start off by saying good job, Jason, balancing our books pretty well.
Now you know why he's so hard on you in our meetings.
You know, there's been some discussion back there, but we'll go easy on them. In front of you today is the animal shelter interlocal agreement that we typically have with Oakland County Animal Welfare. They provide supplemental services for us if we need it. This is a very rare occurrence, but in the event that one of our residents were to take an animal to Oakland County and we did not take possession of that animal immediately by a day or two, then we would be billed for the services from the county for that resident using their services. That's a very rare occurrence. Our current animal welfare personnel have a great working relationship with Oakland County. We really kind of help each other out in many ways that we rarely ever see a bill from them. I think it's probably been a couple years that we've actually had some type of bill from them for one of our residents using their services over ours. It's like, again, it's a very rare occurrence. The interlocal agreement we have in front of you is for 23 through 25. I think it expires in October of 25. So we're just asking for the approval that in the event one of our residents does use their service and for us to supplement in the need of ours, that you approve this interlocal agreement.
It's always nice to have that backup too, in case there was a time when we had so many people out on different scenes and everything's going, and when somebody calls in on off hours, it's the officers that handle the animal welfare if it's nights or weekends.
Yes.
So it's nice to have another backup, which we have an Oakland County Commissioner here with us today, Marcia Gershenson. It's nice to know that no matter when it happens, somebody's going to be able to help.
Yes.
So it's nice to have. Are there any other questions? It's a quiet bunch tonight. Okay. Then I'd look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement, authorize the supervisor and clerk to execute any and all documents to effectuate.
Motion by trustee Shostak, support by trustee Barnett. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass.
Excellent.
And you had wanted to add just a little.
I have one more, and then
Oh,
I
one
will
more.
at the end of
Okay.
that. Yep.
Consider approval then of the Oakland County gun buyback program. That's right, we have another one.
Our very own Commissioner Marcia Gershenson's here. I learned about the gun buyback program actually from Trustee Fakih. I believe her and Marcia had a conversation. It's probably been a couple months now. It was really probably a couple days into my chiefdom. So I talked to Marcia, and they asked that we participate in a pilot program for a gun buyback program. At that time, there was some uncertainty on what the program consisted of, being a pilot program. Since then, we have met with 7 local agencies, Marcia, Commissioner Cavell, and Commissioner Spitz, and really developed what we think will be a successful gun buyback program that will be hosted on October 22nd from 10 a.m. To 2 p.m. With their help, they were able to secure grant funding to cover the entire cost of the event. That includes the officers' overtime that we will need on scene that day to process the weapons, to safely and securely take possession of the weapons. There was a lot more that went into it than we initially thought. We thought, oh, it'll be a gun buyback program and people will pull up and we'll just take these guns. But in exchange, we're going to give gift cards in exchange for the firearms. At this time, it'll be $200 for a long gun, $100 for a handgun, and we've talked about $300 for any assault weapon type style weapon. It's multi. We hope we get guns that were used in crimes off the streets, but we also know that there's several guns in homes that people just don't know how to get rid of, that could end up in the wrong hands at some point. And if we can get those lawfully owned guns off the streets as well and dispose of them in the proper way, then it's a successful program. With the amount of gun violence that's out there, we do know that we need to do our part in that. I will be open and transparent. One of the contentions we had, I don't want to say contentions, but agreements we came to was the anonymity of it. The police departments involved really felt the need to identify somebody that's turning in a weapon. And we understand that could, maybe deter somebody from turning in a weapon. However, we feel if a gun is turned in ethically and by our profession, we feel obligated if there's a victim behind that gun that we have to do some type of proper investigation. On top of that, we're required to. And doing it anonymous, 100% anonymous, would prevent us from doing that. So we really worked with the commissioners, and they understood our position behind that. Again, it's a pilot program, so we'll see how successful it is, and if we have to do it in the future, what changes and stuff we can make. Each agency as of now has been granted $7,500, if I didn't say that originally. And again, that's going to cover the overtime costs, and we're predicting and projecting about $5,000 in funds from each agency to buy back these weapons. With that, we're going to, based on the locations, we are going to partner. Bloomfield Township will be partnering with Auburn Hills. And we're going to do it actually at their station. The way that their main entrance is set up, it really is ideal for a drive-through. We'll have a safe place to take the firearms. And there's a lot of steps we have to do as an agency with these firearms, and running the firearms through our local law enforcement databases to make sure that they're, one, if they're stolen or not stolen, and process them through that way, tag them into evidence. Every one of these firearms then has to go to Oakland County, who has agreed to partner with us using their lab to fire and test fire these weapons, which then we get an immediate response, much like fingerprinting, whether that gun was used in a crime. And then we'll have that information back, usually within 48 hours, but it's they have to test it based on their Oakland County's lab's agreement with the ATF within 48 hours. So we get that information back rather quickly, so then we can move forward with an investigation. So in front of you is the interlocal agreement, and I'm hoping that you'll sign it, allowing us and authorizing the Bloomfield Township to participate in this pilot program that we hope is successful.
I'm so glad you guys worked out the anonymity, because I think next year you'll get even more communities involved that may have backed out because of that, because the more we can get involved to be able to find guns that were involved in crimes would be amazing. But also we had, somebody here from the township who didn't know what to do. They said, my husband's not here anymore. I don't need this. I don't know what to do with it. So it also keeps it out of maybe their child's hands. So it's an important program, and I'm so glad you guys came together on that.
And we did. And I'll just add to Supervisor Walsh that we take firearms no matter what. So even if we're not doing a gun buyback program, we may not be able to give that. If a resident has a firearm they want to get rid of, they can bring it to walk into the station without the firearm and let us know that it's in their car, and that we will come out and get that. And that is free of charge. Yeah. That is always a service that we can provide. And that happens a lot within, unfortunate deaths in the family and stuff, where there's just, what do I do?
We just always tell people go down, not through town hall, because we have had that. We're like, no, go to the police station.
We have every one of our agencies has people who are dedicated to firearms.
Yeah.
I wouldn't walk out and just take it. There may be a firearm I just don't know how to disarm, or it could be an antique. We have guys and girls that will handle that for the resident. We just ask that they bring it in, or not bring it. They leave it in their car, but they come in. Hey, I have firearms turned in. We then go out and take possession of it. So
I'm sorry. In addition to firearms, if a community member has unused and say ammunition that from a leftover gun or something, can they also bring that into the station? Turn that in?
Yes, they can.
Because of course you don't want to throw that in the garbage or anything. But
No, bring it to us. Even if it's at your home and you're afraid to bring it to us, call us and we can try to come out and retrieve it from the residents. We just want people to be safe.
Great, thank you.
How are you going to make people aware of the opportunity?
So the Oakland County Commissioners and their communication staff has sent out a news release today, as a matter of fact, and I will email that tomorrow to each one of you so you guys have it and can see it. I'm sure it'll be on the news. Southfield is a participant, and one of their local churches has offered their location for Southfield and Lathrop Village to be the collection point, but their parishioners and staff are going to stuff. We're getting local businesses given coupons and deals for gun safes. We're giving out kind of a goodie bag with gun locks in it as well. So there will be a big push. I already saw it on the news probably about 3 weeks ago. Southfield's this church did an event on suicide awareness, and they mentioned that we would be doing this program in the near future. So we should see it quite a bit, I would think, starting tomorrow.
And Danny, this is something we can get on the e-news then.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Idea.
Did you want to add anything, Commissioner?
Well, I was just going to thank the board for passing, so I'll wait on that comment. But I do want to thank Trustee Faki for working with me on that. I really appreciate that. But I also have to give a shout out to Chief Gallagher, whose leadership on this team. It's been a pretty impressive experience dealing with 7 local police chiefs. But Chief Gallagher really stepped up and really is the lead on it. So very grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. So I'm just, Chief, I'm not clear. So the resolution says there's no questions asked, but you said you wouldn't do that.
Correct. It
So-
is not an anonymous.
It is not an anonymous thing. Okay.
And we will not lead the public down any road where we didn't fully be transparent with that. We want to be 100% transparent.
That's fine. So, but do we still, I mean, legally, can we vote on this if it says something differently?
To not say no question.
I think the resolution that Michael's referring to is the County Board of Commissioners resolution.
Right.
It's not our resolution.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes, we can vote as described.
Is it, and then I assume that the interlocal that was left at our,
Is it still in here? Is the
No,
anonymity still in here?
the interlocal agreement's silent on the issue.
Okay.
Doesn't mention it.
So they might have done their resolution before the agreement was done?
That is correct. There was and if I may, maybe Marcia can help me out if there's any questions to it. We kind of mirrored the program out of Houston. Houston did a gun buyback program more recently, I'd say in the last 6 months. I don't know the exact date. And it was very successful. What Marcia learned in the meantime of that, because that was anonymous, that was held by the city and not by the police departments. So adding that bit of information, we felt as a police chiefs of these areas, if there's a victim behind that weapon, we owe that to that family. And we had some good and some spirited conversation reference it, because we understand the position that we want more guns off the street. We totally support that. But we strongly feel the ethical obligation that if a victim is behind one of those firearms that's turned in, we owe it to them, that family.
So I really appreciate what you're doing. You and I talked about this before I knew it was coming up, that I said, wouldn't it be great if we could do something like that? And you said, it's coming. Yeah. I really, really appreciate it. Now, in terms of back on the anonymity, do people have to come in with ID or fill out a form, or is it just that you're going to search for any history on that weapon when it comes in?
When they turn in the weapon, we'll probably verify ID. That's the conversation we're having now. We'll verify ID and probably a phone number. If somebody could turn in another gun, at least we can follow up with that person to try to get a lead. Again, I don't know how many weapons we'll get that were used in crimes, but we're hopefully getting weapons no matter what. Well, firearms, when I say weapons, firearms off the streets that may be in our homes, and if our home's broken into, that we haven't touched or some of these parents haven't touched that just don't know how to get rid of it.
Well, and to touch on what Clerk Brooks said about ammunition, slightly different area. If somebody were to have, say, some other kind of explosive device in their home that they, for whatever reason, have but don't know how to get rid of, do we have a way to do that, or is that something that the county would send somebody out? I mean, we're just opening up, let's keep our houses safe, get rid of things we don't want.
If there's explosive devices or they're unknown, we don't want them to touch them, and we want them to call us immediately.
Have send somebody out.
And Chief Leroy and I will, our people will make the determination, and that's obviously that's happened. It goes no different to people who try to make homemade fireworks, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you would.
We would rather have our people come inspect it. Several years ago, we had that in a home on the east side where somebody was making fireworks in their home and explosions happened. So we would much prefer for us to inspect it. We have the resources and the connections and to make sure it's disposed of properly.
So that's just something that if somebody has an issue like that, they contact you and you will have somebody come because you don't want anybody.
Absolutely, we don't want.
Don't want them bringing it here.
Safety is our number one, and no injuries. So let the professionals handle it.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, if they try and throw it out on their own and it ends up in a GFL truck like it did a couple years ago,
we've had 2 or 3 fire trucks.
It will blow up the trucks. So please do not throw those things away. We will have the fire department come and take it away safely.
Yeah. And even on this event, if somebody pulls up with ammunition, we'll take it from them. Yeah. We're not going to not take that. We're not going to give gift cards for it unless we're towards the end and there's zero, But we're hoping we're having a successful event, and we'll push it out throughout, obviously, our social media, the township social media, and we're excited to try it. And to confirm with you, I have had calls from other chiefs who said, can we be included now? And hopefully we'll be successful and this isn't the last one. So
Thank you so
I
much.
have one more question. So the $7,500 that we're getting from the county, that will cover everything,
that's
including
correct.
the gift cards,
Overtime, all of it.
overtime.
It was initially
refreshments,
5,000.
whatever.
The initial thought was 5,000. Then once we talked, it was really Southfield who realized, hey, there's going to be overtime hours. Reference this just because everybody's manpower. And partnering up will hopefully limit some of the overtime costs for us on it, or personnel costs, so we can give more money. And we've planned it out that if Southfield's really busy and Bloomfield Township and Auburn Hills are slow, we will take some of our personnel and relocate them down to Southfield to help, plus those gift cards. And in the event we have gift cards left over, the commissioners have allowed us the opportunity to hold on to those. And if somebody comes in 2 weeks from now and they just have to turn in a firearm, we'll have that gift card again to be able to give out if we don't run out. But hopefully we run out, and hopefully we force them to consider another program.
Great.
So it'll be a good problem to have.
If there's no questions, I know one person in particular would
Yeah,
probably like to
well,
make
and
a
I
motion.
do. I just want to thank Commissioner Gershenson and certainly Chief Gallagher. I think I emailed you like 2 days before you officially became chief. So your willingness to explore this and then to hear from Commissioner Gershenson that you've really spearheaded it with all the other departments makes me extremely proud to be a trustee of Bloomfield Township. So a big thank you. And yes, if there's no other comments, I'd be happy to make the motion.
Motion
Support.
by Trustee Faki, support by Trustee Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Trustee.
And if I may, real quick, I talked to Danny before, but we've been in the media a lot in the last couple of weeks, just for events that are occurring. I like to think are un-Bloomfield-like, but I feel it's important for John and I to recognize our men and women of our departments. They've worked hard over the last couple of weeks. So it's important for us to recognize them for the work they've done. Our detective bureau last week, I don't know if they went home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just with incidents. The big one we had was our home invasion. Fantastic work by the detectives, fantastic work by Troy Police Department in assisting us. We did pursue, we did get a call for home invasion in progress. We were very fortunate that one of our detective sergeants was en route to pick up video at Somerset Mall. And it just happened to be, he was a block away when the call came in. The homeowners were out of town, watched it all on their home security cameras, and he was able to get there, watch subjects run from the home. We engaged in a short pursuit that became too dangerous, so we terminated the pursuit. But they went through some neighborhoods, and Troy it really fell into place. Troy just happened to be right there and was able to get the vehicle stopped. We are confident we linked them to that home invasion, but we know we've linked them to several other. We just haven't, there's still stuff we have to prove on that. But these investigations no longer are just seeing it, right? Everything's technology based. There's so much more, and we don't get cooperation from big tech companies. So these are search warrants that have to be written. It's hours of work, and it just can't be one detective, or we'd never get the case. Or we have a time frame when you have 4 people in custody to get them into court, and to do that, it takes a team effort. And we've had quite a few serious injury or fatal accidents in the last. I feel like the last 2 months. We're part of the South Oakland County Crash Investigation Team and we have more call-outs in Bloomfield Township in the last probably 5 months than the entire team together. And you're talking Troy, you're talking Clawson, Birmingham. So our men and women of our departments have done phenomenal work. And I just think it's important for being on the news so much, and we're getting it out there. People need to know what we truly face every single day. And I can't be more proud of them. As 3 months as a chief, they've proven their worth. And I think the residents, they appreciate. We know they appreciate it, but I think it's important for our board to hear it as well, and for them, if they ever see these meetings, that they know we appreciate them. So.
Then you'll be before us, I believe, next month for a lot of things lately that you've been using, the core probably even more.
Correct.
But you can't talk about those, but
yeah,
just know it has been used so much in our area and the others that it's expanding.
Yeah, and the teamwork, and I with John, with Chief Leroy's crew, we're very fortunate, and I've seen it for the 22 years I've been here, but as leading the departments now, the relationship we have with them and what we do for this community, and how much our guys and girls care, from the 911 dispatchers to the detectives to our civilians. It's to watch that. We had the storm a couple weeks ago where we took over almost 200 phone calls in an hour. That's a lot for 2 dispatchers to handle. So I think it's important to recognize.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me add that.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing all.
Thank you. We agree.
And next we have his partner in crime over there. We have Chief Leroy, who's going to be considering to approve a purchase of a new fire truck. You'll notice it is not a misprint. It is 2024 to the 2025 because we are now at a 900-day build for fire trucks. So it will take 2.5 years to build it.
Yes. It's ironic that I have to be here on a 900-day notice. I was shocked the other day when we called the factory just to see where we were at so we could plan for the future and make sure that we fit it in the correct budget year. And when they said 900 days, I about dropped. So we started working. 6 months ago, we came before the board and bought got approval to order 2 rescues for this upcoming, the 2023-2024 budget. And those rescues are in the queue and being built and will be built this fiscal year. At that time, it was a 600-day budget, or not budget item, but a 600-day build time. And in the 6 months since then, it's turned into a 900-day build time. So what we've decided to do is we took the exact same specifications for what you approved for the 2 rescues previously. It's an identical truck with 0 changes. It is done through the Sourcewell group bidding proposal through the nationwide. This truck is sent out to all the manufacturers. It's group bid on, so procurement is easier, and so everything is the same with that. The one thing that did change, however, in 6 months was a cost increase of over $40,000 between the ambulance itself and then the permanently mounted power load system. Not counting the cot, just the power load stretcher system that goes in the back of the ambulance. So the cost did increase in 6 months over $40,000 to a total of $303,000 and change. That includes all $302,873. That includes all the graphics, all the wiring, all the lighting, everything like that, as in the same previously 2 rescues that we ordered. I'm looking for board approval to add this to the 24-25 fiscal year budget to go forward with.
I know one person reached out to say, well, why do we have to approve it? They won't build it till it's approved, but you can't pay for it till it's delivered. So somebody had asked, even one of our public comments was, why can't you pay for it now? And you can't pay for it till it's delivered. So we're kind of in that.
When we go to order any fire truck, the first thing that they ask for is the board resolution that shows that you have approval to buy this truck, because they don't want to build this truck for anybody and then have the ability to back out of the agreement or say, well, you just ordered it on your own and you didn't have your city's or whoever's approval to do it. Right. So that's the first thing that they ask for.
Any questions for Chief?
One quick question. Since the delivery time is so far out, is there any provision for them to increase their price?
I think that's
price?
The only provision to increase the price is the non-dealer supplied power load cot system that gets mounted. I believe what they're doing is, that's why they're setting the price so high, is that we're seeing these huge changes as they're building that into their build time on the front end.
So I think that answer was no, right? That they've already sort of figured that out.
The price is what the price is.
Once you approve it, so we can't pay for it yet, but it locks your price in. So if they can't raise it during those 900 days. Did I hear?
Yes, you did.
I had one comment. Thank you for bringing this to us and for all the research and the effort on that. And I look forward to learning more next week when I come to Fire Ops. So I'm going to get to see some of this stuff, how it really works.
Yes. And as part of the Fire Ops program, you're going to see quite a few of the things that are built into this truck as part of that fire ops
Such
program.
as the power.
Yes, such as the power load system that we're talking about. It's truly a back
It's
saver
incredible.
for all personnel lifting patients in and out of the ambulance.
Well, Trustee Faki and I are going to get some firsthand knowledge, and I appreciate that opportunity. Thank you.
You'll definitely feel how hard it is to you. I know Michael and I went last year. I'm now healed from the attack of the errant fire hose. But it is amazing. You know, we're up here hearing these sound like dollars and cents, but they're real dollars and cents. Where when you actually feel having to load in somebody manually yourself versus the safety of all of us who, in that hurry, we know that it locks you in. Trying to bring somebody down the stairs in a chair was entertaining. So you will learn why they come to us with very specific asks, and they've
Cutting
tried
through a
things out.
car.
Cutting through the car was cool. That was fun.
It's only cool because there were dummies inside.
Well, we were racing the Birmingham people because there's you'll meet other people from other communities. And
It's probably
it was
not
us
cool and
against
fun though
Birmingham.
when you do it all day long and you get pretty exhausted. But we do appreciate all you do
Or
It
the
was
stress
amazing.
involved in
Yes.
those.
when it's real life.
Well, yeah, it's also nice to know that if we didn't put the fire out, you could turn off the gas. It's a little less pressure than when you're in those scenes, but it's amazing to learn a little bit of what you do every day. And we thank you. Do they hear a
Need a
motion
motion?
down there?
Did hear a motion, Danny.
Motion by
Support.
Trustee Barnett, support by Trustee Shostak. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass.
Thank you.
Next, we have consider approval of the petitions for the Island Lake Woods. Island Lake Woods number 1, West.
Number 9.
Oh, did I
Number
skip
9.
one? I did skip Olivia. I'm sorry. Consider adoption of the special assessment district for the SAD policy. And we have Director Olivia Olson-Budry.
Thank you. So if you recall, we had a study session to discuss the development of a SAD policy on May 3rd, 2022. Since then, there's been several internal meetings with staff and Treasurer Keeps, Supervisor Walsh, and Clerk Brooke. So what is included in the board packet tonight is the final draft version of that policy, taking back the information that was heard during the study session, and then, like I said, as a result of the past several meetings. The policy in the packet before you, I'm just going to run through a couple of the items just to bring them to your attention. I don't have a formal presentation. So just starting at the beginning, it just describes the process. It sets, on the first page, it sets a description of what a special assessment district boundary is, because we have had people say, does it have to be my full subdivision? Can it just be a street? So it's just setting that clarification. And then also who can be a representative for the work that ensues, because there is a lot of work for the homeowners who take on these efforts. On the second page is a long list, and many of these items are already on the township website. So I'm just going to point out the items that have been changed. And most of this is already on the website. Item number 2 is new per the policy, and it's a preliminary step when a resident comes to the township or the engineering department wanting to do a project via SAD, whether it's a road or a water main extension or a sewer extension. The preliminary, and they provide their expression of interest, which is the informal support by the residents without a cost estimate. There's a check with the 3 elected officials internally to make sure that the 3 elected officials believe that this is a logical project. I'll say that. So that's item number 2 that was added. Item number 3, we break down the different types of SADs and clarify some of the costs and what those impacts are. As you're aware, residential roads under the jurisdiction of the Road Commission for Oakland County. The Road Commission develops the plans and the preliminary cost estimate needed to develop a petition at no upfront cost, and that remains the same. However, when we're looking at a public water or sanitary sewer extension, there may be upfront costs if we have to engage our consultant to assist us in developing that. So this clarifies that the township will cover those costs. That is not an upfront cost to the people who are requesting this effort. And then in the case of a private road, we will engage the services of our consultant. However, in that case, the property owners do have to front the money to pay for the township's consultant to do that work since it's private. Continuing on this, onto the third page, what is new on here is when so once we develop the petition, when the petition is released to the people who are going to be circulating it, the township will mail a letter to all of the property owners in the district, letting them know that an official petition has been released. And it's also going to include the name and number of the residents who are leading the charge, shall I say. And also, if a homeowners association is on record, we will notify the homeowners association, just in case maybe it's just one road in a subdivision and none of the members of the homeowners association lives on that one road. We're notifying the subdivision at large. Continuing on, so that was item number 6. Items 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 are similar to what has been included in the past on the website as it is now. Item number 13 addresses if the projects are bid and the final assessment is more than 10% of the estimated cost in the petition, Public Act 188 requires an additional public hearing. And then later on in this document, we touch base on that again, but just reiterating that point. So the next section is the official petition sufficiency, just making it very clear to the residents what the requirements are to present a petition to the board for the board to consider it. And again, this is all in Public Act 188, but most people aren't sitting down to read that document. So hopefully this document just hits the highlight points for the residents and is easier to follow and review. The next section is what Kathy Weisenborn had addressed, and it speaks to assessment amount increases. So again, the requirement for an additional public hearing, if the final assessment is more than 10% over the estimate, is straight out of Public Act 188. And that is a requirement that is written in the petition when they're circulated. It is identified so residents, when they consider signing a petition, the language is in there. But during the meetings that we've had since the study session, there was some kind of what if scenarios. So that was the second paragraph of that section was added. If the final special assessment cost after receiving public bids exceeds 15% or more, and this is not part of Public Act 188, this 15%. Public Act 188 just starts at 10%. But if it's at 15%, then the board will decide. They have a couple options. First off, they have to have an additional public hearing no matter what. But the board may consider recirculating a petition. You don't have to. You may consider recirculating the petition with the updated cost within a 30-day period. However, what's important to note is this still does not preclude the township to proceed with the project based on the final assessment and holding that additional public hearing. So the township can still move forward regardless of the overage on the assessment. And I bring that up because in the case of the road commission, when we work with the road commission, at the first public hearing is when the township authorizes the agreement with the road commission, and the township agrees in that agreement to reimburse the road commission for any expenses that they incur, which at that point would be the design, the bidding expenses, and any expenses up to that point. So if the board were to decide not to proceed with the project, the township owes those expenses to the road commission. So that is a concern if you were not to proceed with the petition, even if it came back more than 10% over. Moving on, assessment, interest rates, and financing. This section is actually a accumulation of several resolutions from the past. So we're just putting them in one place. And this has been past policy and past practices. It has to do with an interest rate if the water and sewer fund is used to pay for a water and sewer SAD. Also, if bonds are sold for either a water sewer project or a road SAD, the interest rate would be no greater than 1% over the interest rate if bonds are sold. And then also outlines the timeline for water and sewer SADs. Again, these have all been past resolutions from the board. And then we get onto consultant costs, where it's just clarifying that any costs incurred by the township, if we have to use our consultants, will be are not upfront costs to the residents. They will be included in the SAD if the project if it moves on to be a project, but any costs for development of a cost estimate and preliminary plans would be borne by the township. So when we had the study session, we talked about fees up front. The consensus was there was no interest. There was not interest in making that more difficult for residents to proceed with this effort. However, there is still expenses incurred by the township if this becomes a project. So this next section, the Township Administration and Management Fee, proposes adding a 0.5% of the cost estimate for a township administration fee. This would only be applied if the board finalizes the assessment and the project moves forward. And it is covering both all the expenses up to that point and then future expenses, which includes any accounting expenses, treasurer expenses over the life of the assessment period. We touch on municipal bond costs. That's consistently been 3.5% of the construction contingencies and engineering fees estimated. That has been the policy for several years. The petition notice, this has always been on the cover of the petitions, but it's worth reiterating again in a policy to make it clear for everybody that this clarifies that you may not withdraw your signature from the petition after the petition's filed with the township. That's been a question that's come up in the past, so we're just reiterating it here, but it is also on the cover page of the petitions. And then we get on to special assessment district refunds at the end of the assessment period. Again, this language is right out of Public Act 188, but we're just pulled it out here so it's clear and upfront for the residents. Once if the total amount collected on assessments is larger by more than 5% of the original roll, then that surplus would be returned back to the current property owners at the end of the assessment period. However, in the case for roads, if that surplus is 5% or less, the township can retain it for use in the general fund for road SADs. And likewise, if it's 5% or less for water and sewer SADs, the township can retain it and it's paid into the water and sewer fund. And then the final section of the policy is just repealing the resolutions that were all separate that now are compiled into this document.
You did a really good job on this. We've met a lot. Because there are a lot of what ifs. You know, we have so many more coming now that it was what if, and actually Kathy Weisenborn touched on it. Instead of forcing back, what if they come before us and say we don't want it, we just want you to pass it, and it's like overwhelming. Do we want to have that option to still go forward with it? So that's where like a lot of this came from, was actually comments from that SAD study session we had that helped a lot, hearing a lot of that. So your patience with us was very, very commendable, because there were a lot of back and forth between all of our questions. But if you have more, here she is. Michael?
I have a bunch. Okay, so I didn't realize, and as I'm reading the current process map, that the EOI has to have 50% of the property owners sign before you'll issue a petition?
Yeah.
So they're basically canvassing twice?
Right. Yes. So it's a requirement that started with the road commission. Before they spend time developing a cost estimate and preliminary plans, they want to know that a majority of the residents are interested in finding out what this will be.
They're not saying they're interested in paying for it. They're just saying they're interested in finding out how much
it will
is.
cost. And there's someone
sometimes
who's
someone
carried
says
that
yes to
petition.
that and then says no way when they get the cost. So you can't. The road commission was doing a lot of estimates for people.
Yeah,
that,
okay, I hear that. All right, I didn't I just thought that was just,
And so we've applied that to the water and sewer SADs as well. And it says on the document that it's a non-committal petition. It's not an official petition. It's not committing them to any
Just an-
costs.
It's just getting the RCOC to start the process.
But that's why I could sympathize with the
expression of interest, that's what the E
with
is.
the comment tonight, because as someone who's carried that petition to get the interest, then to get the actual petition that now you're going to pay if you sign this, and we've been part of that twice. Once when I was on, it was successful, and some neighbors tried it recently and went through the whole thing twice, and we were like at that 48%, and we didn't pass it. So it is a lot of work. So
And
I
the
can understand
expression
why
of
they don't want it to get pulled.
The expression of interest is much simpler to obtain. It doesn't have to be both property owners, or it doesn't have to be husband and wife if they're married. We don't verify the signatures. We match that the names match the address. I had one case where 2 people signed and they wrote their wrong address down. So I asked the person to please take it back, because get the people to make sure they know their address. But it's much simpler, and we've also been flexible in what type of confirmation we'll take. Some subdivisions have been creative. At the Westchester Village, they had a meeting here last week, and they had their expression of interest form right at the table as people walked in, and they could sign it. It's a much more relaxed document than a formal petition.
It's a little easier to sign too, because whether you're a yes or a no, you want to have the answer.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, there's a bunch of typos and things like that that are driving me nuts, but I'm sure we can fix that.
I'll point them out.
I asked that question earlier. Okay. On the official petition sufficiency, it lists an A and a B, right? Okay. Is it A and B? Is it A or B?
So Public Act 188 requires for roads, it only identifies the road frontage. And for water and sewer, it only identifies land area. Historically, the township has also added on the total number of properties.
So it's an and.
It is and.
Okay, can we clarify that?
Sure.
Okay.
And that's to protect in case you have one person who has this large parcel and they're a yes, but everybody else has to pay the same benefit.
Right. No, that makes sense. I just wanted to clarify because it didn't say and or, and so. Okay. On the financing, we tack 1% over the interest rate of the bonds. Okay. Does that get refunded as part of if we collect 5% more than we spent, or do we keep that as a fee?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't know.
It stays in the district and at the end would get refunded. And that basically, that is for covering issues if there are a number of prepayments and we still have to make the interest. But at the end of the day, it's not a fee that the township is charging.
Okay, so we collect the 1%,
Yes.
hold it in the district, and then after 20 years, if there's excess funds, 15 years, sorry. I thought I saw somewhere in here that they can.
Water and sewer, 20 years.
They can do 20 years for assessments over 20,000. Oh, that's just for water, right? I'm sorry. So is there a difference between water and roads in what you're describing?
No, the money would be refunded either way.
Water says 6%.
Well, that's only if we're using our internal funds.
Right.
If we're bonding, we take whatever the rate of the bond is, add a percent, and then we keep that until the end of this district, and then we refund it if it's excess, if it's not used.
Well, that 1% interest is not part of the assessment that we're collecting for the project. So if the assessment's $10,000 and they bond it, and let's say it's, 2% is the interest rate, isn't only just the assessment that gets refunded? not the interest?
Whatever's
It's whatever's
Whatever's
remaining.
left in the
whatever-
district.
whatever's left, right?
So it's not just the interest, it's whatever's remaining in the fund.
Well-
And I think it's also important to point out, it's to whoever the property owner is
Yeah.
at the end of the time. It's not prorated during the years if there's more different property owners.
That
Yeah,
answer's the same, whether it's water and sewer. or roads,
Right.
it's the same.
And
Well,
how,
so
is that different from this township management fee of 0.5%? Is that just a straight fee that we keep that's separate from this?
Well, one's,
Yes.
we don't touch the 1%. It doesn't ever come to us. That's their money and it stays their money.
So the
The
half
fee
percent.
is
Well,
to cover all of the cost.
let's be clear. It comes to us. We
But
hold it
it's
in
not
trust
our fee. It's
for the
not for
district.
us.
But the
Yeah.
fee that Trustee Murray is describing is separate issue. That's a 0.5% of the total cost that we're going to charge as a fee
To cover
at the
all
time
costs of
that the
township.
district is opened.
It's a part of the assessment.
It's part of the assessment, so-
$10,000 if that's
Right.
what
Question
it-
is
They're
that
two
considered
different
in that 5% over or under, or is that just a fee, flat fee?
The fee that we would charge that would roll in, which is different than the 1%,
Right.
is a flat fee because it's to try and get, and the reason we did it later is you don't want to stop people from trying to get SADs done. And one of the big triggers is who's going to pay for these upfront fees. So that's why we got rid of the concept of an upfront fee, and we're going to take some hits. There are going to be some that don't pass. I mean, half of them don't pass.
Right.
Half the time, the township is going to take some nuggets on the head, and the other time, we'll be able to roll it into the project. So we're making a conscious decision that we're taking on that risk.
And we collect that at the time of the assessment. So in the case of the one we're going to be discussing in a few minutes, that's a $3.5–4 million assessment. We're going to charge $20,000.
It was not included in that one since this petition was issued before this policy.
Theoretically, we would. I'm just so that the board can understand the fees that we would charge $20,000 as part of that assessment. So to your question, it's not going to be leftover because we're going to take it from the beginning and it's going to go to defray township costs is what I'm hearing.
Right.
So that answers one of my questions. And so the 3.5% that we charge is another fee that would be charged if we bond to cover the cost of bonding.
And think of that as a third-party consultant's fees that
But not us.
we are including now.
Right.
And now we're using it as a percentage. The difference between the two is the 0.5% is we don't collect that now. This is a new fee, and it's directly goes to the township's coffers, not to third parties that we're reimbursing.
Right. But we charge 3.5, even though the actual amount may be more or less. We don't true that.
That's right.
We don't true that up.
We've analyzed that over a number of them, and that's what it comes out to. And people are looking for an absolute number.
No, I
I'm just trying to
Instead
answer your
of, so
question.
the hard part was the other option is, and that's why we had everybody track their time. Hey, look back at this. How many hours did every single person that touched an SAD, and the average came to a certain amount, versus now the other option is having every single one to the dollar, but then now you have people spending time tracking, like, so the cost value of what would be saved wasn't worth the amount of time now you're going to spend, which also you'd have to add on to the cost. Does that make sense? Like, it almost always came up the same when they were talking about what they were doing.
And if
Except
I
for the
may,
village.
so and Jason can give me a thumbs up. So we add that 3.5% to cover the expenses for outside costs, legal and financing. If that's 20 grand based on the estimate in the petition, but it only comes up to 13,000 actual costs because those costs are tracked. That difference then would be included in any sort of balance at the end of the SAD.
Yeah, but I mean, that's little consolation considering they might have to wait 15 years and how many people are still going to be the property owner of record in 15 years to get that refund. So I get that. I get that.
There's some that they'll benefit from it, some that they might, but most of it's about right.
I understand there's not much we can do about it, but okay, I think. I mean, I'd like to hear some discussion about the fee, the 0.5%. I mean, I'm not in favor of it, but I could be convinced.
If I can, I'm not in favor of it either. I don't know if I can be convinced. I'm not certain how much, I know it's costing money, but also people are paying taxes to the township. And part of those taxes are to pay the costs of the staff who look at the SADs and have to work on them. And if it's not totally covering it, so be it. It just seems like it's a tax on top of a tax. Everything else I think looks great. Done a terrific job as far as making it very clear what the requirements are and the procedures, make it much easier and clearer for the residents. But I do have a problem with the management fee.
So just to address that, because I know we always get to hear, and I used to use it myself, I pay taxes. We do pay taxes for what we do on a daily basis, and that covers what we do on a daily basis. SAD is outside of that scope. Just like right now I'm building a home, I would love to use I pay taxes. Why do I have to pay permit fees? It's outside of the scope of the normal day-to-day business, so I have to pay thousands of dollars for permit fees. So it's not a tax on a tax because it's outside the scope. With this, we don't have anybody to do SADs at all. Olivia does all of it, which is no offense, but she looks exhausted because of what we've put on her. We don't have people to do this, and we didn't want to not do it. And then the issue was how do we balance helping people move forward so we can encourage SADs versus saying, I'm sorry, we don't have the staff to do this. You have to go through the RCOC, which is something that's very, very real with how limited the tax dollars are to cover day to day versus adding in extra stuff. And no offense to RCOC if they're watching, but it's a better process through
Our process
our
is
team.
better, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's outside the scope of what we pay taxes for.
So I wanted to add in, having done this before, twice in our sub, the flat fee, I do have concerns about that. But I have another question in addition to that is, Olivia, now it says that if the overall project at the end, if there's an excess of 5%, you return that to the homeowners. But if there's less than 5%, you keep it and put it back in the fund. But I did just example numbers. My sub was $1 million, give or take a little, 60 homes. That would be over $800 per homeowner that they paid, that was more than they properly should have paid, that would go back in. And that sort of doesn't sit 100% right with me. I mean, 5% is...
That is straight out of Public Act 188, but I'll let...
That's actually the statute.
That's what it says.
We didn't create that.
Right, no, I
that's the
know, but
statute.
having done this twice, I didn't realize, I'm learning something new. I didn't know that was in there, and so that was a surprise to me. And I guess I wasn't thrilled to hear
That
that.
would have been there.
But
when
I do know, having been through this, you guys estimate wonderfully and, incredibly accurately, considering that this is like a 2-year project and there's so many moving factors. So you guys do an awesome job. So I wanted to finish with that.
And to your point, you're a lot more open than maybe some have been, because it absolutely existed when you did it both times. But Olivia gives a lot of information that maybe others relied on you to read versus her telling everybody. So a lot of things that we're hearing about aren't new. Just Olivia's actually highlighting and being transparent and opening things up. But it absolutely existed both times.
No, and that's what I was reading. I understand it was there, but something new that having actually been through the process more than once, I did not realize was in there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't either, because once SADs are closed, that's finance. They finance handle it.
Well,
Once construction's done, I'm out. So that was something that I was like, I think we need to put this in.
There's a lot of information there, and we studied it in our subdivision. We've tried 2 or 3 times to get it because we've to the point where it's repeat. And I worked with a gentleman from the county because the first time we went through the county. So I thought I knew a whole lot about it, but yeah, that was just something I was not aware of. So still learning.
Let me follow up on that. So as I read the language here, it says if it's 5% or less, it shall be retained, meaning we don't have discretion.
Right. And it doesn't
You
go
have
back to
to
the
keep
homeowner.
it.
Right, and it goes into the water fund if it's water
Right.
project, or in the road fund if it's road project. And that's nice, but
Right.
I
So-
just didn't realize.
So I have a technical question, and maybe Dirk can answer this. Maybe we need Jason's expertise. But all of the other funds that we charge, all of the other things that we charge fees for, like you mentioned inspections and
Yeah,
things
I
like
would
that.
love to say I'm not paying
Okay.
any more fees for my house.
Those have to go into separate fund accounting, because can we charge fees in the general fund? We have a building fund to collect fees. We have a senior services fund to collect fees. Do we have the ability to collect fees
Jason,
into the general fund.
can you come up, Jason?
Sorry
so
to
you can
put
answer?
you on the spot.
I don't want to
but-
give the wrong answer,
but-
and since you're here.
The answer is yes. For example, we collect ordinance fees in the general fund. We collect passport fees for passport. Actually, that's a good example because we don't have to do passports. It's a service the department has decided to do, and anyone who partakes in that service pays a fee for that. So that's kind of a good similarity to the fee for this. We didn't do SADs when I was hired in, other than water and sewer 15 years ago. Now there could be 4 to 6 in a year. So it's a new job and new responsibility that's crossing multiple departments. And so there is a cost that we didn't have before, and thus a proposed fee for you to.
And I'll bet it's going to be real easy to budget for.
It's not, no.
So,
But can I just add quick little on top of that, because the fee comes into the general fund. It's not, say, for the passports. It goes in the general fund. It's not dedicated to any kind of particular sub-account. It's not just for clerk.
Right. Well, that was going to be what I was just about to
Absolutely.
to say.
So with this.
Is that, yes, it comes into the general fund, therefore we could use it for anything. I could be convinced to support it if there was a way to say the funds that are going to come in are going to be dedicated to supporting another staff person in EESD or something like that. Because, otherwise, if we start charging this fee and we don't add more staff, Olivia's not going to see any of this money.
Well, technically, the fee will be to cover the 50% that we're paying and not getting paid back on. So the goal is to try and break even, because again, you only have a 50% pass rate. So we are going to pay 50% of the time. So you're going to have a negative in the general fund. I don't know if there's a way we can guarantee it goes. Maybe we earmark it or do something where it only can be used to offset those negatives. But the goal was to offset the negatives. We will take on more than half of the time, or about half.
So I have another question on the fee versus, like you said, you pay permit fees on your house, but that's your own individual thing. When you do an SAD, residents are paying to improve the roads. And when we improve our own roads, then the road department doesn't have to come out and patch nearly as much for a lot of years. So we are investing in the roads that
They
lots
actually
of people
spend-
use.
benefit to more people than just your individual
Correct.
house.
Exactly.
even-
So
but
that
the road
is more of a,
department does spend more time on that because we spend more time on roads that people invest in. So we have a very limited road fund, as you saw. We have less than 1 mile that we can cover every year. If somebody pays to do their SAD, we are going to go out and do more of the maintenance to keep that road than a road that's in disrepair. And that's something that they've been doing for a while here.
'cause I was just thinking if there's like a cost difference, like, by getting rid of a horribly, dilapidated road with the new road, that eases some of the burden on the road department is
The
all I
road
was looking
department
at.
actually focuses more on that road starting once they fix it.
Danny, can I make a comment?
Because you focus on the good roads to keep the good roads because they invested in their roads. So you're more likely to crack seal that road than a road that is in disrepair. So not just potholes is only one thing, and it's not even the most expensive thing. Seal coating, there's a lot of other things that are more expensive. But a lot of our road fund, I just want to make sure people know, is for maintenance too of our, these are, whether you improve your road or not, that doesn't affect if we plow you or not. These are things that, regardless of if you improve your road, the roads have to be touched. But we actually will spend more time making sure that their road stays longer because they've spent money on their road. So it kind of goes up the ladder.
I think Brian's got something.
I think it's great that we're having this policy discussion. We've been doing this now, SADs, for, as Jason said, when he started 15 years ago, there weren't many. We've been doing them for roughly 10 years. We have roughly 20. We've been having policies over the years that have been pretty consistent, but we've been tweaking it, and this is really a good exercise to put everything together, which again is kind of why we have at the end repealing certain things, so we can really not have piecemeal, but have one policy, be able to look at it, have the residents understand it, and be very clear and comprehensive. So we have spent a lot of time, and I think it's well warranted, and it's well warranted because these roads are public roads, different than someone's private home. When someone drives over a public road, it gives a sense of that community. To Val's point, when a plow truck is going over a bad road, it is definitely doing disrepair to the plow. When you're putting salt down on a road and the road is cracked up and has potholes, it's eating up a lot more salt. It's not as safe of a road. So from a community standpoint, a newer road is a better road. From the standpoint of safety, from the standpoint of use, from the standpoint of efficiency. Over the last decade or so that we've been doing SADs, staff, whether it's engineering, whether it's treasury, whether it's assessing, have put time into them. Their budgets are paid for out of those budgets and out of the general fund. And quite frankly, I do agree that Olivia's department needs more staffing, because as time goes on, our roads are getting exponentially worse, and they are going, as we're seeing, having more and more roads come before us. So I don't think that the answer is having a half a point fee. I think the answer is doing what we've always done, which is including it as part of the taxes that we pay, and budgeting and allocating staff to that department as part of our budget process. We've spent a lot of time talking about this fee, I think appropriately so, because it is something new. It's something that I think residents, first of all, don't really understand and don't appreciate the fact that they have to pay for their own road. I get it, but that's the fact. But that is how townships in the state of Michigan work. But to me, I think this is a fee that should be included in taxes. It does improve not just for that district, but if I'm driving through on Kirkway, if this road gets done, or on a road that has been done, it's part of the general community, and I think it should be included in the taxes that we already pay. The community has increased the public safety, so we will have a little more flexibility in the budget than we've had in the past couple of years. And I think it's appropriate to utilize the general fund for that. And I wouldn't be able to support a fee for it. And again, I think that it creates a value to everyone, not just within that district. And so I don't think that district should have to pay over and above what they're already paying in taxes.
The one thing I'll say, and again, there's 7 of us up here, so we'll do whatever we need to do, but there's 2 things I need to make sure you guys are aware of. Well, one, tax or assessments don't go up because of roads, because there's no way to value that road. So when you say that somebody improving their home doesn't make an impact, it makes an immediate impact because property values go up. So the fact that people have fixed their homes up and down my street, our values have gone up over $130,000. $0 to your assessment will go up, or to your value will go up with the road. And you can, like, I know some people say, well, I never touch that road. Well, nobody ever sees the house that I'm fixing either, but it will affect their property values. But the issue is, we already will have a budget amendment for the stormwater person. We're going to have to hire, and already she'll be coming to you with the budget amendment to hire an extra person. And just to let you know, engineers, and no offense, are not cheap. This will have to be an engineer, so we will now be coming to a budget amendment now for 2 people. And it will be, I mean, Jason's here when you figure out benefits and stuff, but even just a base salary, you're talking about $85,000 to $90,000 a person. So, and the other one is, now you're adding in benefits. Now you're talking well over $100,000 plus half of everything that doesn't get approved. So again, we're talking about being good stewards of money. We've seen some of the mistakes in the past. I'm trying not to repeat mistakes of the past. This is something that they chose not to charge, and it is causing big dollar problems and people who are doing overtime. So I just need you guys to know that if we don't do the fee, I will be coming to you for at least 2 new engineers, one of which will be a deputy level, because of the fact that it has to be stormwater, and that's it. So we are talking about adding a couple $100,000 minimum into this budget for this year, because we cannot sustain it based on the current staffing at all. So it's okay if we don't do a fee, but I need you to know what's behind that. This is not something we thought about quickly. This thought about like what kind of mistakes have past administrations done this is the way it's always been done. Where have we lost money? Where are people having problems? This is an obvious one. So we can continue to do what they did in the past. I am not for that. I am one who likes to fix mistakes, but we can still do it. But I will have to come to you immediately, probably next week, so that we can post for them quickly for at least 2 new positions. And I'm guessing Jason can kind of give us some money values, but I'm guessing it'll be probably, when you add in benefits and everything, a couple hundred, at least $250,000.
I want to let Stephanie get in here in a second, but I'm confused because if the volume of SADs and the workload is going up, then wouldn't we hire this person anyway? You're saying that if we don't vote for the fee, we're going to have to hire someone.
Well, we can't right now unless we do a budget amendment. So I'm saying it's okay if we do this, but I need to do a budget amendment to go outside. So you just saw our audit. We don't break budgets usually. It is a big deal because one, it's going to affect us on this will be something that next year you'll see you did go above your budget. This is what you did.
Well, not if you amend it.
Not if we amend it.
Well, but they do make note of certain things. They do make note of this. So in your big thing, they'll talk about a lot of this. So in the minutia, you're right. But I'm just saying we can absolutely do this, but don't be surprised, and please have at least 3 other people support me when I say I need 2 new people, and I will be coming in early October with that request.
I quickly say something? I mean, I agree. I mean, the idea that the team needs support and resources to timely and promptly process these, because that's what the community wants. And we have to give them the resources to do it. Maybe it's the fee, maybe it's the budget amendment, but certainly, I mean, if, we've got to do one of those things. I certainly absolutely agree.
And this year it will come from fund balance.
Couldn't vote no on this and vote no on the budget amendment, because then we're not supporting giving the support the community needs and the staff needs.
And you have to understand it is ongoing. So it's not like you're just going to give this to me once. Now we're going to get a budget amendment. I'm going to take it from the fund balance, and next year something else gets cut. So you can't just give money and not consult. I just need you guys to realize when I come to you to try and fix problems, we don't have to fix it. But that means something else gets cut next year to accommodate that $250,000 nugget. You know, you just got to remember, it's not like we aren't selling anything. It is taxes in, taxes out, fees in. It's not like we can just sell more product. So you do have to understand there's a definite, right now it'd be an amendment, and next year it'd be adjusting somebody's department to account for the new staff going to Olivia's department.
So initially, when we talked about this at the study session, I was opposed to how it was laid out that we would charge the fee. And when I was going through the presentation, I was, you know, maybe not everybody up here agrees with me, but I really appreciated that you took the feedback, you sort of brainstormed, and I appreciated what you came back with, because originally I didn't like the idea of charging this fee, and then if it doesn't end up getting passed, and now, you know, the residents have put this money in and it's not going to go through. But while I agree that there is a benefit to the overall community, I think it's hard to argue that the homeowners in that subdivision are gaining a greater benefit than the rest of the community. And because of that, there is additional work for our staff, and I think it's fair to charge a fee for that additional work. Just one other thing, and this is an aside, I don't know if it was ever touched on, but with regard to the suggestion of how we're going to allocate, so we allocate it fairly across versus the frontage. I don't know if we want to be clear on that, but I appreciated that suggestion from Kathy Weisenborn.
About not doing equal benefits?
No, so she was saying we're silent in our policy of how we allocate the fee for the SAD.
Oh, gotcha.
So if we want to just explain, you know, say explicitly, it will be, divided equally amongst the homeowners in the subdivision. But I'll just say that I am in favor of this policy as written.
On the allocation issue, if I can.
Yeah.
There are so many twists and turns and so many unique circumstances with every SCD that you look at that you simply can't say half a unit's going to be this, 1 unit's going to be that. It's just not possible. And for instance, in Kirkway, which is a perfect example, there were so many unique properties and so many different ways of accessing the various roads to be paved. Bloomfield Village will be another one. There isn't a simple template that you can just use. It's a nice idea, and I get it, but it's just not realistic.
Because
Makes
that's
sense.
the benefit, not the fee, right? You're talking about,
No,
because
she-
Kathy was talking about.
She's talking allocation of benefits. So like
Right.
some properties get one benefit, some get half a benefit, some get no benefit. Yeah, so it's a different issue.
Yeah, okay.
Can I just get one more clarification from Olivia? So the management fee, the 0.5%, that's new. But I know in the past, there is also an administration fee that's built into the SAD project. There was I know there was a township fee in the last proposal that we got for our sub.
The 1% again.
There's no other fee?
Are you thinking that 1% again, which is not for us and is not a fee for us?
I'm just recalling
We
that
don't
the last
have
time
any
we
fee.
did, we proposed to do our roads maybe 3-4 years ago. It had I believe it had a township fee, an admin fee. There was no admin fee?
I
if you
did
went
not
to
do
the
your
township.
petition. It was prior to my involvement with this process, because I only did this process since becoming department head. And I follow what my predecessor did. You know, maybe the 3.5% was labeled different. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't have it.
Okay.
I have a thought slash question. Maybe it is for Dirk or anybody, but a special assessment district is supposed to be something we design for those who have a benefit, right? I mean, only people who benefit from this project can be part of the special assessment.
Yes.
And I think that's an important consideration because the policy question that has been raised, and a lot of people have mentioned it, and we've Brian, Danny, and I have talked about it a lot, which is, well, when do we charge a fee, and when is it part of the overall tax structure of the township? And this one's kind of a close one. I mean, it's things that are just individualized benefits. I see that, that makes sense. We should charge a fee. Building permits are kind of really easy, and also there's a special place to put that money, which is also Michael's point. In this case, there's not a special place to put this money, which is kind of on the negative side for me of saying, well, we charge a fee. But on the positive side is that, well, the whole concept of an SAD is that we're saying, and in defending in court if we have to, that you are individually getting a benefit from this service we're providing by going through this, and that's why you can be assessed.
That's a requisite part of the special assessment itself, is there has to be a benefit, a special benefit, not a benefit that the rest of the community gets. Correct.
And I'm kind of, I was really strong about not charging anything up front, as Trustee Faki mentioned too, and that was really important. But I've been a little wishy-washy on the end part. Well, should we charge a fee? I mean, I don't know. Is it a tax? Is it a fee? When is it should be a fee? No doubt we need the staff and support to do these things, to do them not only so that we can do them timely, but that the community. We really want to encourage neighborhoods to do this. This is the only way that neighborhood roads can get fixed, is through this sad process. And a lot of our roads are coming due. And we need the staff and the resources to work on this. So I don't know, in the end, I think I come down saying that I could support a fee. There is an individualized benefit, charging the folks that are receiving that benefit the fee for the township performing the service, makes sense to me.
Well, I'm wholly behind not the upfront fee, because again, having done this 2-3 times now, if that you went and said, well, we have the expression of interest form, everybody will sign that. That's easy to get your 50+%. But then you get that real petition and you have to go and explain to people that you're going to have to pay for this. Well, if we had to start out by giving money to get the expression of interest, it would be one more hurdle. So I'm definitely against the upfront fee. And
and that's come out since the last version.
Right. Well, I don't think that was ever, that was proposed, but that's never been part of the policy, and I don't think it should be, because I think this just further makes it harder to get your roads paved if you have to get a fee to get a cost estimate.
Jason, is there a way, if a fee does pass, to put it into something that is used for only so is there a way to, I don't know what the real word is, whether it's earmark or something, is there a way to put it into a fund where that money is only used to help either cover the ones we lose on, or if we do create a balance, that it could be used towards future ones to offset fees, like where it cannot be used on anything else in the general fund but SADs?
Well, it in my mind, that's already built in by it being part of the general fund. So if you're hiring anyone, or even just Olivia's team right now that's working on it, everyone who is working on it that incurs a cost is being paid out of the general fund right now. So just by nature of collecting a fee that is going right into the general fund, you're already applying it to the costs that have already been sunk. There's no, in my mind, there's no reason or necessity to try and earmark it, if you will, because, and then to address your losses of prior years, or prior SADs, those were all lost in prior years. So you can't go backwards and apply it to a closed fiscal year. And the costs are gonna exceed, the costs involved are gonna almost always exceed that 0.5%.
And may I have a follow-up question? On the revenue side of the general account, will there be a line that says SAD fees? I think there's a line that says passport fees.
Yeah, we can, anything that's worth,
Tracking.
a dollar amount or worth tracking or wanted to be tracked, we can have its own revenue line, just like passport fees, ordinance fees. Some years it might be zero, some might have a balance.
I guess I would just suggest that we just had a millage passed, and it seems to me that when we look at the trust that the community has placed in the township, it's to spend money and do it in a reasonable fashion, in a efficient fashion, and we have the funds to fund the department.
But we
now that
don't.
we're, let me finish, please. Now that we aren't putting as much into public safety because that has been increased. So we are going to have more money available in the general fund. And I really think that, as Martin stated earlier, we were more inclusive before. We had to cut things like hazardous waste. We're now putting that back into the budget because that's something that the community felt was part of the taxes they were being paid for. I would suggest this is the same kind of thing, that this is not, I don't think we want to be nickel and diming our residents. I think this does. We have the ability to charge a 1% administration fee for tax collection. We don't, and most other communities do charge an administrative fee. Again, it was, I think, deemed in the past, and I concur with it, that that's part of what we do, as part of what we think that we do as included in the general taxes. And a lot of residents would view that as kind of insult to injury, and I think that's what this amounts to. I respect everyone's desire to fund the positions. We have the ability to fund the positions. It's called a budget. And we will have the resources to fund those positions, which we really didn't in the past couple of years, which is why we had to cut the road fund. And now we do have the resources. So I think that in keeping in context of how we've done this in the past, which I think has worked very well. I don't think there's been any mistakes about it. And now we have an ability to look at it and think, is this the way we want to move forward? And I do think that we will absolutely save money in other departments, well, in the road department specifically, and DPW and salt and things like that, because there's just less salt that seeps into the road bed. The brine stays on the surface. It's safer. So we clearly want to incentivize our residents to maintain the road, to renew the road. It clearly is better for the general community, and it's really, I believe, part of why people are paying taxes. And again, they're not happy with paying this to begin with. So to me, this is really insult to injury.
I think the reason maybe I shouldn't have said mistake. What I mean to say is, when you look at needs of $42 million, so we don't really, I'm going to be real honest, we don't have the money to pay for all this. And that's the problem, is we have $42 million of needs that was just shown in a study session. That's why I wanted you guys to see it, because I get to see this all day. Running 11 of the 13 departments, I get to see what everybody needs, and I see all the spots that we're missing. That's why I made sure that you all saw we have $42 million of things that we haven't been able to address because we do things the way it's always been done. And it's not a mistake. It's a business choice to continue doing this way instead of seeing we have a failure, let's fix the failure, and instead spend the money on this new millage that we just had where it was supposed to be, and use that funds to fix the $42 million we've been ignoring. So that's the problem. I'm saying we can absolutely do this. We do not need to do a fee. It will take away from one of the other things that we have realized, because the way it's been done has led us to OPEB issues. They used to spend their money on things in the moment and forget about the future. We all took that on when we took on a 7% funded OPEB. The way we've changed things and focused differently, and the 7 of us haven't done it the way it's always been done, we're at 22% in 2 years. So I think what scares me is the only reason I've heard not to charge this fee is it's not the way it's the way it's always been done before. And knowing there's $42 million that can affect the entire community. These are not small things. These are big things that affect every single person. I personally haven't seen anything that makes it different than, like you said, legally a special assessment. And I see that the failures will continue, the structural issues that we're ignoring will continue if we don't focus on those.
I think we need to be really careful when we talk about capital projects that are decade-type projects where we may have $42 million in need, and we're always going to have needs. And the comment I made during ARPA, and when we were having those discussions, is we're going to get to them. It's a question of how. It's not a question of a failure. It's not a question of that we were neglectful in the past, because quite frankly, in the past, when we weren't quote unquote funding OPEB, we were paying for retiree health care. The state changed their requirements of how it should be funded. The fact of the matter is, when if you really want to get into funding, when the storm sewers and infrastructure of the community was being built, we were paying a lot of millage when that money, I guess, could have been going towards OPEB back then. But the fact of the matter is, we have always paid for retiree health cares as we've been going. The only thing that changed was the state requirement to pay it. So we were not failing in OPEB. And quite frankly, when we started funding OPEB roughly 4 or 5 years ago, and now got from, really from 4% when we started funding it to now close to 22%, it really shows what we can do if we want to focus on it. And if we want to do something in a concerted effort, we've been very successful. It's only because, the state changed that. So I think we really need to be careful when we talk about failures, because those weren't failures. Those were priorities that the board made in terms of how they were funding taxpayer dollars. And again, the taxpayers have just voted a millage where we're going to have the resources. So we're not going to have the resources from a half a percent to fund $42 million in these, and we're not going to hit it. So one way or another, we need to act collectively and act responsibly, and I know we will. But I just think we need to be careful when we talk about failures or past neglect or things, couching things in that vein, because I think we've been a successful community, we are a successful community, and we will be. And now what we're talking about is really a tax on a tax, which again, I can't support.
So we can't ignore the fact that when you look at why they set that new rule, because cities that weren't funding OPEB went under. When you look at who was next to us in the bottom of the barrel, you're talking about the city of Inkster.
Yeah, you're right.
We were on there. You have other people who are 80%. Our surrounding communities were 80% funded, 70%. There aren't many of us that were in the bottom of that barrel. So maybe the failure word is wrong, but we were on the bottom of the barrel.
And
we were not the example that you want to be when you look at who we were linked with based on how we did things.
And when the state made that determination, and quite frankly, I thought it was wise. I think from a CPA standpoint, that's something you want to do.
It is wise.
And once we decided to do it, we became exponentially successful. We're not with Inkster. We're not with these other communities that you're saying, because if the state changed the way that, again, I think it's very clear. We need to be very clear that we've always been funding retiree health care 100%. It's that the state changed the way that they wanted us to save for it in the future.
We didn't fund it 100%. We did it like a credit card where we paid the minimum due while the interest kept growing.
Danny,
it's just not a good financial model.
Every bill that came in, we paid for. So we
But we
100%
didn't look at the big
funded.
bill that kept growing over here.
I'm not
I mean,
suggesting.
we had a structural deficit of $164 million.
And once we looked at it, we attacked it and did it diligently and did it really well.
So I'm trying to attack the things that I'm seeing building around us. And I just, again, I'm only one vote, but I personally would hate to see us go backwards when we've been going forwards, as you pointed out, for 2 years now.
Yeah, and if I can just interject here quickly, so this has nothing to do with OPEB, what we're deciding on, but to Supervisor Walsh's point, it is about looking at the bigger picture. Sure, we have the revenue now, but we don't know what's going to happen down the line. We have our staff telling us these requests are increasing, and so the need from our department is also going to increase. So I don't know how prudent it is for us to say, well, we have the money, we'll figure it out, without knowing that then we're going to have to cut something else because at some point the money just isn't going to be there. And frankly, we were able to do well with OPEB because of the funding and the market. And now we see the market reversing, and we see that our money into it is declining. So I guess we've talked about this for a long time. I would move that we accept the policy as it was presented to us by the department head.
Motion by, is there any other discussion? Are we ready?
I guess we've gone deeper in this than I think any of us planned or expected. I'm seeing a lot of different perspectives, and I think that to Supervisor Walsh's credit, we have gone in a very good direction since this administration changed. And I feel like the OPEB was a glaring problem, that other things were being used with the money that were not essentials. And I think we've gone in a much better direction. And I think Supervisor Walsh makes a great point that this is where it's coming from. This is what, it's like appropriately using the money for the appropriate department and the appropriate project, as opposed to saying we'll find the money somewhere and risk cutting or anything else. So I think we've gone way too deep here, and I think we need to move forward.
Is that a second to the motion?
With the edit that Trustee Shostak mentioned with regard to just make sure that's an and, not an or.
Yes, with the amendment with regard to that and or.
So right now we have a motion on the table from Trustee Faki with the amendments as requested by Trustee Shostak. Do I have a second?
Support.
Support by Trustee Murray. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
We should do a roll call.
Okay, Trustee Faki,
Yes.
Trustee Shostak,
No.
Treasurer Keeps,
No.
Trustee Barnett,
No.
Trustee Murray.
Yes.
I am yes, and Supervisor Walsh.
I am a yes. So
Yes is
that's passed 4-3.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you.
Before we let Olivia go, I know it's been a long night.
one more thing.
Oh, she's got one
Yeah,
more
she's
thing.
got
I
a
just
big
had
one
a,
next.
I had a question that isn't on the agenda, just like we had talked about the Long Lake Road, we would get an update monthly. And I just didn't know if you had a quick
do that?
update. You
Can
can
we
do it
that
after.
one after, just because
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just didn't want to forget to ask.
And then you did point out, this does not affect current SADs that are out there right now, so this policy, the fee would not affect the current one before us. But the next thing that we would consider is approval of the petitions for all of the communities listed in agenda item number 10, and to set the date for the hearing of necessity.
Yep. All right. So I'm just going to call this a Kirkway Area Road SAD. This is the map. It was included in the petition. It also identifies the properties and the benefit they receive. The pink color is a full unit of benefit, so they would pay a full assessment. The green is a half unit of benefit, so they would pay half assessment, and the yellows are $0 assessment, zero benefit. These are the subdivisions included. And then there are some parcels that are not part of a platted subdivision. So we have the caveat at the end. The work summarizes 2.9 miles of the public roads only: Kirkway Road, Inwood Circle, part of Island Lane, Apple Lane, Blossom Lane, and part of Standish Court. It includes pulverizing existing road and placing a new bituminous asphalt 4 inches thick, full width over the pulverized base. Existing curb and gutter will be removed and replaced with concrete curb and gutter. It's not continuous throughout the whole subdivision, so it's just in-kind replacement in general. A limited amount of drainage improvements will be made to reasonably assure drainage of the pavement. Again, I like to emphasize this is just the surface of the road to get the water off the road. It's not fixing ditch issues and drainage issues parallel to the road. And all shoulders and disturbed areas will be covered with topsoil and sod. Minimum or maximum 5-foot approaches will be constructed to make sure the driveways can match the existing roadway. And people often ask, well, what if I have a paved driveway or a stamped driveway? Pavers, if they can, will be set aside. Special driveways, colored driveways, they'll match existing road edge, because there's no way you can match that after the fact. Just some photos of Kirkway. I send a staff out and I say, just take a bunch of pictures. I don't care what they look like. Don't look for the bad areas. Just get some pictures. So this is just, he includes the locations so you can see. So the petition was confirmed by the township assessor, supported by 61.19% of the homeowners, representing 60.99% of the road frontage. Estimated project cost is $4,589,264.18. There's a total of 134 parcels included in the SAD, but the total parcels receiving a benefit or an assessment are 118. Again, back to the map, the pink properties, their assessment is estimated to be $38,892.07. And then the green parcels receiving half a unit of benefit is estimated to be $19,446.03. So at this time, I'm just asking you to accept the petitions, approve the resolution included in the board packet to create SAD number 425, and then to schedule the public hearing of necessity for October 24th, 2022.
Impressive support.
Yes. And CT said that they could have gotten more, but they stopped. So they definitely have some strong support on this one.
Yeah, that's very strong support. When we've done them, we've gone to every homeowner just because, the mailing of the letters that we've just instituted to make sure every single person, it's more like a face-to-face with every single person to know, but 61% is phenomenal.
Anybody have any questions? If not, I'd look for a motion to set the hearing.
I'll make a motion, schedule the public hearing of necessity for October 24th,
Motion.
2022.
Perfect.
Support.
Motion by trustee Barnett, support by treasurer Keeps. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And then before you go, if you could give the update, 'cause there's been some movement out there.
Yeah, I have a half-written memo, but the last 4 weeks have not been good to me. There's a lot going on at the township. So the contractor started, we shut down the road. I think most people are believing the road signs when they drive past them, but there's still people who don't. The road is closed. You cannot get through. Contractor started working. We have had some conflicts with our existing water main with our sanitary sewer. Once we started digging, things are underground, and we're currently looking at trying to resolve some issues with our water main being closer than we thought it was to the sewer, which impacts the installation of the sewer. So we're working on that right now. There will be changes. I will be coming to the board on how, I don't know how our engineers are working on how we're going to address it right now. But the contractor is working, and at this time I don't have any official submittals for payment or any official submittals for extras. But I will be coming back to discuss the water main conflict issue.
There's a lot going on out there.
It's a hard job. I feel like I did enough warning that I'm unfortunately this is going to be a hard job. And like I said, as we started excavating and the water main was closer than we expected, even though we did pothole in a couple areas to locate it. It swoops, if that's the technical term. And then, you know, we have the existing utilities out there. So right now we're looking at how we can address this. And our engineers are working on it. This just happened. What day is it? Yesterday.
So is that looking like the estimated completion might get pushed back a tiny bit?
Yeah, more than likely. Unless we can phase it in. Again, we're trying to decide, can we complete one and phase the other one in? There's a lot of questions that I don't have the answers to right now.
Doesn't help with all the rain either.
No, and I mean, it takes, just like with the fire truck, it takes long lead time. So even if we were to make a change and say, let's do this, it doesn't mean that the materials are available like they used to be. I mean, you used to be able to call and get a stick of pipe delivered the next day. Now you can't. You used to be able to get a hydrant and you can't now. So those are all part of the considerations that are going to be involved with looking at this plan. But I mean, I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know what the plan is yet, but I will be back to talk about that things that we will have to do to change the scope of the project.
Thank you, Olivia.
Yep. And memo's half written, but then other things happen.
Can we go back to the last item for just 1 second? For the public hearing of necessity, can we give them a better spot on the agenda next time?
Yes.
Thank you for sticking around.
I mean, that audit wasn't what you wanted to hear and see. It was riveting. Yeah, we can maybe put them first.
Yeah. Right after approve the minutes.
There we go.
There you go.
Great idea.
Nice idea.
Sorry for the long meeting.
All right.
It was interesting.
But we're not quite done.
How about we'll finish this and then I can
soon as
talk
we're
with you
finished.
offline. So the last item we have is to approve the payroll and vouchers for September 28th.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Shostak, support by trustee Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And then the last one is
Martin's
a motion
favorite.
to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Motion by clerk Brooke, support by trustee Shostak. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? I'll come down and critique.